Hello my scholars, you're welcome to my school YouTube channel. My name is Emmanuel and in today's video we'll be tackling JAMB CBT past question for biology for the year 2007. Please don't go anywhere, stick around and we'll be right back. You are welcome back to my school YouTube channel. In today's video, we'll be tackling question 1 to 25. Now let's get down to question number 1. The organs that will be most useful to giant African rats in finding their way in underground habitats are the what? We have the vibrissae, we have nostrils, we have eyes, we have tails. Usually, the vibrissae is what is used by the African rats to do what? To navigate their way when they are underground. Okay. Well, we have the nostril. The nostril, even though it is used for smell, yes, but directly it is not used in navigating their way through. Of course, when we talk about the eyes can help them to see, but when they get into the dark, like underneath the ground, the eyes might not be able to help them in navigating their way and detecting danger, okay, while they are under the ground. Then we talk about the tails. The tails, usually we know, do not really have a role to play in navigating their way. So the vibrissae actually is another name we refer to as the whiskers, okay. You've seen the whiskers, you see them coming out. Most rodents have that. So what they use the whiskers in doing, or the vibrissae, is actually to navigate their way through when they are underneath the ground, and then they can be able to see to and sense and detect when there is danger. So the correct answer is option A. Now let's move on to question number 2. The increasing order of the particle size in following soil type is what? Okay, we have the clay, we have sand, we have silt, we have gravel. That's what we have for all the options. So we just have them, changed all over to see which one is the right one. So when we talk about increasing order, so that means we are going from the least to the highest. Okay, let's look at the board. The clay actually has the particle size. The size is about less than 0.002 mm. So which means that even breeze, okay, when there is air or water, it can easily move each of the particles of those. So the particles are very, very tiny and very, very small. That's why you discover that when water comes in contact with them, it is so easy to become more sticky because the particles can be held together. Then we look at silt. Silt actually has the particle size ranging from 0.002 mm, okay, to around 0.05 mm, okay. That's the size particle of silt. So which means it's higher, bigger. The sizes of silt is bigger than that of the clay. And then we have sand. The sand usually is around 0.05 mm. Usually we have it to about that's about 2 mm. Yeah. So that's the range of the value of the what? Of the sand. And then we have the gravel. The gravel is around that's around 2 mm. Okay. We have 2 mm in terms of particle size to 60 mm. Of course, if you have seen the gravel before, you can see that the particles are bigger in size, okay, than any other one, than the clay, than the silt, than the sand. So if we talk about increasing order of the particle sizes, so which means that from the least, this one, the value is lesser, okay, is the least here than 0.002 meters. So that means from clay, we have, this is from 0.002 to 0.005, so which is to what? To the silt. And then from the silt, we have the sand having the particle size to be between 0.005 to 2 mm. Okay, so that is the sand. And then eventually we have the biggest or the largest particle size of them all, which is what? The gravel. So it is from clay to silt, from silt to sand, and then from sand to the gravel. Let's move on to the screen and let's see the option that best fits into that. So we have clay. Of course, clay is the least, less than 0.002 mm to the sand. No, the sand actually comes before the silt because the particle size of sand is actually greater or bigger than that of the silt. So option A is eliminated. Option B, silt. No, silt will not come first because we have clay here. Clay is supposed to be the first because it's the least, okay, in terms of particle size. Option C says clay, yeah, silt, yeah, 0.002, less than that, then 0.02 to 0.05 mm. then this is from 0.5 yes, sand and then to gravel. So clay to silt to sand to what? To gravel. So option C is the correct answer. Question number 3. The causative agent of bird flu is a what? Of course, bird flu is a disease, okay, that is associated with the birds, with poultry, okay. Usually, it is caused by a virus, okay. The virus we call influenza. If I will call it avian influenza. That means, if sometimes they call it influenza A, okay. It's a virus, actually. How is it contacted? When you have poultry, birds, okay, that are infected, okay, from their droppings, one can contact it, or from a surface that is contaminated, one can contact it. When you inhale, when you breathe in the dust, okay, the dust from the poultry, from the, where the droppings of the infected birds had been, okay, one can easily contact that bird flu, okay, but it's actually caused by influenza avian or avian influenza, which is a virus. So option A says protozoan, virus, bacterium, fungus. So the correct answer is option B. Now let's move on to question 4. Which of the following is an example of parasitism? Before we begin to look at these examples, let's talk about what parasitism is. Parasitism is a type of association, relationship, okay, between two organisms, okay, whereby one of them, which is the parasite, is benefiting, and then while it's benefiting, it is inflicting harm, okay, or pain on the other organism. One is benefiting while the other one is suffering loss or harm, okay, usually the host, and then we have the parasite. That is what parasitism is, okay. Option A says fungi growing on a dead tree branch. Well, fungi growing on a dead tree, like we have the mushroom, for instance, is an example of fungi, okay. It grows on dead tree branch. What does it do? It gets its nutrient from there. Of course, this type of relationship is what we call saprophytism, okay, saprophyte. When you have an organism that is feeding on a dead, decaying what? Plant or tree, okay, to get its nutrient from there. Of course, the tree is dead already, so it does not have, that part of the tree is dead, so there's no harm that is causing on it. So it's a kind of saprophyte or saprophytism relation. So we call that saprophytism, not parasitism. Option B says a squirrel living in an abandoned nest of a bird. Well, a squirrel living in an abandoned nest of a bird. The squirrel is living in the nest that was initially owned by a bird, but the bird is no longer living there. So there's no harm the squirrel is causing on the bird, okay. So which means the squirrel is gaining, okay, while the nest is actually what? The bird is getting no harm. It's not being harmed at all. So that kind of relationship, we call it commensalism, okay. One of the organism is benefiting, and then the other one is not experiencing any harm at all, okay. It's not experiencing any pain. So this is commensalism, not parasitism. Option C says mosquito growing on an orange tree. Of course, mosquito, we know mosquito to be a parasitic plant, okay, usually. So they get the nutrients, yes, from the orange tree and cause harm, cause damage on that part of the tree where they are growing on. So there is a kind of the mosquito here is the parasite, while the orange tree here is the host. It's the one that's hosting, is suffering the pain, is suffering the harm from the word mosquito. So this is a parasitic relationship, okay. That is parasitism. Option D says cattle egrets taking ticks from the body of cattle. Of course, both of them are benefiting because the cattle egrets pick the ticks. The ticks actually causing diseases, okay, transferring, infecting the body of the cattle, okay. When it tries to suck out blood, then it infects it also. But the cattle egret being there will now begin to pick up those egrets from the body. So in other way now, it's helping to cater for the cattle, while the cattle also is giving it food, because the cattle egret is also using the ticks for what? For feeding. So both of them are benefiting. So we call that a mutual relationship, mutualism, okay, symbiosis. So being that as it may, we have seen all this and we have analyzed this example now. The one that best fits in as an example of parasitism where harm is being caused on the other organism is mosquito growing on an orange tree. So the correct answer is option C. Now let's move on to question number 5. One adaptation shown by hydrophytes in freshwater habitats is the what? Well, don't forget that hydrophytes are plants, okay, usually that grow up in places where there are large amount of water, okay. So for those type of plants, you will know that they don't even need deep roots, okay, because it is so easy for them to get. In fact, their roots are poorly developed, okay, unlike the other plants that grow up in the arid areas, in deserts, okay, in places where there are little or no water. Those ones, they have their roots, you know, well developed, and then they have cortical. Let's look at the options we have here. Option A says leaves reduced to spines. Leaves will be reduced to spine in plants that actually have limited supply of water in those areas, okay. So it is not for hydrophytes. We have poor development of roots and xylem tissue. Yes, because they have water at every point in time. There is no time where they want to fall short of water. Water is always available at every point in time. So there's poor development of roots and xylem tissues. Actually, yes, for hydrophytes. Option C says waxy cortical on shoot surface. We will have waxy cortical on shoot surface if we have plants like xerophytes. Xerophytes are plants that grow up in places where there are limited supply of water. So they will develop a waxy cortical in way of adaptation so that they will not lose out more water. They will be able to retain the little amount of water they have to keep the plant actually, you know, going and carrying out its metabolic activity. So option C is also not correct. Option D says well-developed roots and supporting system. I said earlier before that well-developed roots are found in xerophyte because they have to source for, you know, more water in the arid land, in deserts where there are little or no amount of water in that particular area. So this also is not for hydrophyte. So option A is not. Option B is poor development of roots. Of course, yes. So hydrophyte usually, in terms of adaptation, their roots are poorly developed and then their xylem tissues are also poorly. So the correct answer is option B. Now let's move on to question number 6. A crucible of 5 grams weighed 10 grams after filling with fresh soil. It is then heated in an oven at 100 degrees Celsius for 1 hour. After cooling in a desiccator, the weight was 8 grams. The percentage of water in the soil is what? So let's solve out that question. Of course, this is a calculation we have to do. You know, we have calculations in biology. This question says a crucible of 5 grams. So we can say weight of crucible, okay, was given to be what? 5 grams. Okay, that's the empty crucible. Crucible is just, you know, something like this. Okay, it's made of, you put in this here, substances here to dry. Okay, you put it inside the desiccator to remove the amount of water to keep it safe for what? Analysis. So the weight of the crucible empty is 5, was weight to be 5 grams. Then after filling with fresh soil, the weight became 10 grams. So we can say weight, okay, of crucible plus the soil plus the fresh soil. Of course, this is what equals to what? 10 grams. So if the weight of the crucible plus soil is 10 grams, but the crucible alone is 5 grams. So you will agree with me that the weight of the soil alone should be 10 minus 5. Okay, since the crucible alone is 5 grams, but when you introduce the soil into the crucible, it became 10 grams. So we can say that the weight, I'll just use WT for this, weight of soil, okay, will actually be equal to 10 minus 5. So that gives us what? 5 grams. So this is the weight of the soil. The soil is 5 grams. Then the weight of the crucible is also 5 grams. So let's move on. The question says when it was heated in an oven at 100 degrees Celsius for 1 hour, after cooling in a desiccator, the weight was 8 grams. So after cooling, this was before it was heated. Okay, I'll just put this before heating, before applying heat. What happened? The weight was what? 10 grams. Okay, so which means by the time it was now heated, so weight of soil, okay, after heating, okay, weight of soil after heating. So since we have subtracted this one already from this to get the weight of soil itself, weight was actually 10 grams together with the soil, but weight of soil now after heating, don't forget, together with the crucible is still there, that's why it is 8 grams. So let's say the weight of crucible, okay, plus soil, okay, plus heat, okay, after it was heated and cooled, was weight what? 8 grams. So that means 8 grams after what? After heating. Okay, so now we can determine if before eating it was 10 grams. Now after eating now it is 8 grams. So that means we can determine the amount of water that was what? That was lost. So we can say water loss, okay, will be equal to 10 before it was heated minus after it was heated and cooled 8. So which is what? 2 grams. So which means the weight of the water that was lost was just what? 2 grams. If we were asked to calculate the weight of the water lost, the answer would have been 2 grams. But we were told to calculate the percentage of water in the soil. So we will say percentage of water in soil will be equal to the weight of water loss all over the weight of soil, okay, fresh soil itself, fresh soil, then because it is a percentage, so we multiply by what? 100 over 1. So weight of water loss, we calculated that what? 2 grams. So we have 2 over weight of fresh soil. When we calculated that, we said it was what? 5 grams, because we have subtracted 10 minus 5, because this 10 was here because it is still with the crucible. The soil is in the crucible. But we want to calculate the weight of the soil alone without the crucible is 10 minus 5, which is what we got it to be 5. So that will be weight of the fresh soil only will be 5. Then multiply that by what? 100 over 1. So we know that that will be 5 goes there, 1, 5 in 100. That is 20. So we have 2 times 20, that is 40. So we have 40%. So this should be the percentage water in the soil. Let's move on to the screen. 60, that's 40 degree. Option A says 80, 60, 20, 40 degrees. So 40%. So the percentage of water in the soil is 40%. So the correct answer is option D. Now question 7. The highest level of ecological organization is the what? Ecological, the highest, okay? They are all, what we have here are all ecological organization. How organisms are in that environment, how they are able to live together, interact together with themselves, okay? But which one is the highest? Option A is ecosystem. An ecosystem is a community, okay, that involves living organisms, okay, interacting with their environment, physical environment, okay? So that can be said to be an ecosystem. So when we talk about, we are talking about the biotic and abiotic factors, okay? How the living organisms could interact with their physical environment at that particular time. But also, don't forget that an ecosystem is a structural and functional unit of a biosphere. So which means is a part of what? A biosphere. Option B says population. Population is total number of organisms that are living in a particular environment or community at a particular period of time. Okay, the total number is what we refer to as what? Population. Okay, so of course that also will not be the highest level, even though we have organisms interacting with themselves and the environment where they live in, but that is not the highest. Option C says biosphere. Okay, like I said earlier on, biosphere ecosystem is a unit, a structural and functional unit of biosphere. So which means biosphere is bigger and larger than what? The ecosystem and then the population. So when we talk about biosphere, let's look at it. Bio, of course, means life from your biology, okay? Living organism, and then the sphere has to do with the earth, okay? So living, so we can join together to say living organisms, okay, that are living, or life, or organisms that are living on earth, okay? Different part of the earth. When we talk about the earth, we talk about the soil, we talk about the water, we talk about the atmosphere, the air. So that is why we said that the biosphere is actually divided into 3. Okay, we have the lithosphere. Lithosphere has to do with the part of the earth that has to do with what? The soil, okay, where the organisms live. Organisms that live on the soil, I said to say that they live because we have them living on the soil or on the land. So that is lithosphere. Then we have the hydrosphere. Hydrosphere has to do with water. So the part of the earth where living organisms live in is what we call the hydrosphere. That is made up of water, okay, like the sea, the oceans. So, and then the third part is what? The atmosphere. The atmosphere has to do with the part of the earth where the living organisms, like the microorganisms, okay, we have microorganisms living in the atmosphere and existing there. So any organism you want to talk about, they fall into those 3 categories, either on the land, that's lithosphere or soil, or hydrosphere, that is in the water, or in the atmosphere, in the air. So biosphere tends to what? Have a larger, or the largest, okay, or the highest level of ecological organization. If you talk about niche, niche has to do with, you know, a space, okay, that is made, by organisms. They carve a niche, they carve a space and occupation, like function, okay, for themselves, what the responsibility they carry out in that particular environment. So among all of these options now, the highest level of ecological organization is not ecosystem, it's not population, it's not niche, but it is what? Biosphere. So the correct answer is option C. Question number 8. The mangrove swamp in Nigeria is restricted to the where? When we talk about the mangrove swamp, it has to do with ecological area where that is closer to the what? The coastal region, okay? Coastal region or subcoastal region in the environment, of course, which includes what? Nigeria, okay? So the mangrove swamp usually we have can thrive in places where there are high rainfall, okay, where we have high temperatures, okay, in that particular environment. If you look at Sahel Savannah is a region that is so dry, okay, because it is not too close to the coastal region, okay? So we have it being so dry. It is too dry, okay, for the mangrove swamp to survive in there. We have the Sudan Savannah, even though we have some level of rainfall, but it is still too dry that it can accumulate, or it can accommodate the mangrove swamp from thriving. Then we talk about the Guinea Savannah. The Guinea Savannah actually has the highest amount of rainfall when you compare all these four, okay, has the highest, but yet it is still not suitable for the mangrove swamp to thrive there. We have the tropical rainforest. Tropical rainforest has some rainfall, okay, high rainfall. Then we have high temperature in that particular zone. Like I said, that the Guinea Savannah has more rainfall here than even the tropical rainforest. But because this one has high temperature, okay, and also has high, rainfall, though not as much as this, it has the conditions, the factors there are suitable, okay, for the mangrove swamp to be able to thrive, because we have the brackish, okay, water, we have the salt water, okay, in this particular environment, this tropical rainforest. So based on that, the mangrove swamp in Nigeria is restricted to the tropical rainforest. So the correct answer is option D. Now let's move on to question number 9. A biotic factor. This is abiotic, not abiotic, okay? We have biotic and abiotic. So a biotic factor which affects the distribution and abundance of organisms in a terrestrial habitat is what? Now when we talk about biotic factors usually are factors that tend to involve the interaction of living organisms, okay? There are any factor that can make organisms to want to interact together, okay, is what we call the biotic factor, but that's in simpler terms, okay? The abiotic factors, we have those ones that has to do with non-living. Like for instance, we talk about the sunlight, okay? We talk about the pH, okay? Like we have the sunlight, we have the pH, we have also the temperature, okay? That fall, of course, the rainfall that happens in that particular environment is what we call the abiotic factor, okay? But the biotic factor, like we have here, we have temperature, okay? Temperature is a biotic factor of the water system, of the environment, or of the soil, whether the soil or the water is actually also a biotic factor. Light, that's the sunlight, is also a biotic factor. But competition, competition sets in, okay, among organisms when there's limited amount of water, resources. When we say resources, we talk about the water supply, we talk about the food, we talk about space, okay? Organisms they need those things to thrive, to survive in an environment. So, but when we have limited supply of them, okay, of those resources, we discover that they begin to compete with one another in that environment. So that is why competition is actually considered to be a biotic factor, okay, that can affect the distribution and abundance of organisms in the terrestrial, that means on the land, in the terrestrial habitat. So the correct answer is option B, competition. Do you know you can take practice questions on our simulated JAMB CBT past questions? All you need to do is to click on the link in the description below that takes you to the Myschool website. There you'll be able to download the Myschool mobile app for your Androids and the Myschool software for your laptops and computers. Please go ahead and start practicing. Now let's move on to question number 10. In which of the following Nigeria states can mountain vegetation be found? Usually in Nigeria we have states where mountains are found. Okay, we have Taraba State, we have Niger State, we have Borno State, okay, that's Borno, Maiduguri. We have so many mountains there. Then we talk about Adamawa State, okay. Those states in Nigeria, we have mountains in those areas. Let's look at the options we have. We have Taraba, of course, most likely among this. Taraba states have so many mountain vegetations in that particular. We have them on the oil hills, okay. In Enugu, well, in the east, that's in the southern east, okay, southeastern part of the eastern part of Nigeria, we have hills, yes, like coals, okay. That's why it's referred to as the coal city. We have coals there, but not as mountain vegetation as more. Though we have few of them, but not as pronounced as we have in Taraba State. We have Bauchi, we have Plateau. No. So the correct answer here is option A, Taraba. I believe you are enjoying this content. If yes, please don't forget to click on the like button, hit the subscribe button, and finally tap on the notification bell to keep you informed once we upload our next video. Now let's move on to question number 11. Which of the following factors can bring about competition in population? Competition in population. Like we said in the previous question, that competition sets in when we have limited resources available in a community or in an environment, okay. Like for water, we have limited supply of water, supply of food, limited supply of space, okay. The organisms begin to what? They begin to compete. So what among these ones now, which one can bring about competition in that? We talk about dispersion. When there is dispersion, okay, organisms are dispersed, like they are scattered, okay. When they are scattered, they are not confined in an environment, so you cannot have competition because they've all gone about maybe to fend for food or for water, for whatever. So we have a space there, the space there, we don't have so many of them in that particular environment. So dispersion will not bring about competition, okay. Then we talk about emigration. Emigration is a situation where organisms begin to move, they migrate, they move out, okay, of that community, of that environment where they are. So if they are moving out, then there cannot be competition in that particular community. So emigration also will not bring about competition. Option D says drought. Yes, drought has to do with a time of extreme dryness, okay. When we say extreme, of course, we can have dry season, we can have wet season, but this time is extremely dry. The environment, for instance, we talk about the water, system in the water, in the aquatic environment, okay. When the water begins to dry, it dries up completely that you will begin to see even the mud become so dry, then they begin to crack, on top of them. Then you see water, no life is there, of course. So you now have limited supply of water, maybe for aquatic organisms there. So organisms that are living in there, they want to thrive, they want to what? They now want to what? To survive, to adapt to that situation. So you have limited supply of water, and they must live in. So they begin to compete for the resources that is limited. There's food. The food also will be limited. So all the organisms living there, the number has not reduced. There are still more. So when the number of organisms living in that environment outweighs, or it's more than the available resources, there definitely is going to be competition. Drought is going to definitely bring about the competition in what? In that particular population. So option C is correct. Option D says mortality. When we talk about mortality, we are talking about the death rate. When organisms begin to die, okay, of course, for whatever factor, for whatever reason, the number of organisms living in that community is reduced, decreases. So the number reduces, then the resources are still what? Much and available. So competition is not going to settle. So among this option now, the correct answer is option C, drought. Now let's move on to question number 12. The theory which supports the view that the large muscles developed by an athlete will be passed on to the offspring was proposed by who? Of course, this had to do with a scientist that talked about the inheritance of acquired characteristics or traits. Let's look at the options we have. Option A says Lamarck. Of course, Lamarck, the full name is J.B. John Baptist Lamarck. Jen Jean Baptist Lamarck. Okay, he was the one that gave the principle that we refer to as what? Principle of what? Lamarckism. And what does it say? It talks about acquisition, okay, inheritance of acquired characteristics or traits, that an organism can acquire some traits, okay, can pass on the what? The characteristics or the traits that it has present in it to the offspring that is giving birth to. So which means that an athlete that had bigger muscles, okay, or larger muscles can actually, that is developed maybe by gym or by exercising, it can pass it on to what? To the offspring that is giving birth to. That was by J.B. Lamarck. So the principle of Lamarckism. And then even though that principle was actually countered by Charles Darwin, okay, which is option B, by bringing up his natural selection. He came up with his natural selection principle that struck or countered what Lamarck actually gave about the acquisition of inherited traits or characteristics. So by Charles Darwin. But Charles Darwin was not the one that gave us this principle. It was by Lamarck. Then option C says Mendel. Mendel is known for his theory of the works on genetics, okay? Genetics, so, but not definitely passing off. Then we talk about Pasteur. Pasteur is the one that works pasteurization, okay? Like we talk of pasteurizing milk, pasteurization milk, process of making milk and that. So that is not what is happening. So the theory which supports the view that the large muscles developed by an athlete will be passed on to the offspring was actually proposed by no other person by Lamarck. We call it the principle of Lamarckism. So the correct answer is option A. Now let's move on to question number 13. In lizards, the lowering of the gular fold is used to what? When we talk about gular fold is possessed by the male counterpart, okay, of the lizard. Male lizard, usually we refer to them as agama lizards, okay. I believe you've seen agama lizard before. Well, maybe if you have not seen it, let's look at a diagram so that we can show us how it looks like for those that have not seen it before. So you can see this. So I believe that the majority of us should have seen this, okay. Of course, you can see how fine this is, how beautiful it is. You can see the color. We have blue here. We have the orange color here, or the red. Then you have the tail also well decorated and well colored. So even as humans, if you see something that looks fine like this, I hope you want to appreciate it. This lizard here has this gular fold. At this point, at this particular point, of course, that's the eye, nose, wing, and all the rest. So the gular fold is directly underneath the this jaw here, this part here that is linked here. So how does he release the gular fold? When he wants to do it, he sees the female counterpart, okay, and he wants to display. He wants to show that, can you see my color? Can't you see how beautiful I am? See how fine I am. Then it does what? It will now curve in. It will bend in this back, okay, and then something like this, and then it will now protrude. This place now shoot up. The gular fold now will now come out very well. And then sometimes when it wants, of course, when it does that, the female sees it and say, wow, so this is actually a masculine and fine lizard, okay. And of course it wants to, so when it wants to attract a female counterpart for mating, it will bend in this, okay, protrude in this back, okay, it comes up, and then by doing that, this place now swells, okay. When the gular fold, this is where we have the gular fold, it swells up, and then the beauty comes out so much. So the female counterpart is actually attracted to this particular lizard. So let's go back to the option and see what we have there. So you can see option A says catch insects. That's not the purpose of lowering the gular fold, okay. Then we talk about option B, attracting mates. Yes, the female counterpart wants to attract them, it will lower it. So option B is correct. Option C says defend their territory. No. Of course, sometimes, yes, when there is danger too, okay, in the environment, it wants to also do that to scare. But that is not the primary function of lowering the gular fold, okay. Then we talk about frightening enemies. So the major function or the primary function in lizards, okay, to lower their gular fold is used to attract mates. So the correct answer is option B. Question number 14. Example of a fish that estivates is what? You must remember or know what estivation is first. Estivation has to do with a period of dormancy, okay, that happens in living organisms when there is little supply. Of course, dryness. When we say dryness, we have a dry condition like drought. When there's drought, when there is dry season, okay. Now the water organisms usually that lives in water, they want to thrive there. When there is limited supply of water, now there are some organisms, we are talking about fish now, that some fishes, once the water is dried up completely, they die up. That is the end of it. And we have some fishes that even in the midst of the drought, in the midst of the estivation, when there's dryness, okay, of water in that particular place, what happens? They can still stay for some time. You see them, they can find that way. Let's look at option A. Option A says shark. Shark does not fall in that category. Okay, shark cannot live outside the water. If it stays after some time, it will not, it will die off. We have the coca, the same thing. We have the lungfish, we have catfish. Option C and D, usually the lungfish and the catfish. Okay, the lungfish, what the lungfish does is that when there is dry season, okay, it will now, find its way, okay, into the mud, and then it will stay in that place, bury itself, and it can stay there for days, for months. In fact, it can stay even up to 5 years inside the mud, okay, while it is there, and then it will still be surviving, trying to what? Of course, it will shut down for some time because it is what we call a time of dormancy. So all the activities that it will just stop down because it's trying to what? To conserve the little amount of food, nutrient that it has, the water it has there, for the what? For energy to be able to what? To prosper and to survive in that particular. So it can stay for a longer period of time, okay, outside, or when there's aestivation, they will talk about. Let's look at the diagram of lungfish and see how it looks like. So this is the diagram of a lungfish. Should, in case you have seen this, maybe at the water area or the market where they have, you can see this. You can see the scale. This is how the scale is. So it's able to what? Conserve. And then what you see, you can see there is looking somehow like the catfish, but it's not. Of course, this one is more rugged, okay, than the catfish when it comes to aestivation. So it can stay years, it can stay for days, it can stay for weeks, it can stay for months. Catfish, I'm not sure if catfish survives, comes out of water, if it can stay up to 2 weeks, I'm not sure, but this can last even up to that particular time. So this is how the diagram of a lungfish actually looks like. It has a cortical like thick back. The scales are very, very thick, okay, so it doesn't lose water easily. Of course, you know that the catfish doesn't have this kind of one, so that's why this one is definitely the best option among the options we have. Let's go back to the options so that we can choose our answer. So the example of a fish that aestivates is not shark, it's not coca, it's not catfish, it is lungfish. Okay, so the correct answer is option C. Now let's move on to question number 15. In mammals, the organ directly on top of the kidney is the what? Okay, mammals, the organ directly on top of the kidney is the what? We have the thyroid gland, we have the adrenal gland, we have pancreas gland, we have pituitary gland. I think we need a diagram to explain all of these glands that we have there. So this is, of course, I tended to have the diagram that has a male and the female so that we can know all the other glands. We call them endocrine gland, okay? Endocrine glands. We have them both in the male and the female. The only difference is where we have it in the reproductive part, okay? For the male, we have the testis, okay? The system or the gland that actually, that secretes or make the sex hormones that are present in the, so it's the testis that is responsible for that, okay? And while in the female we have the ovary. Of course, we know that the ovary is the one that secretes the female sex hormones, okay? Secretes female sex hormones, the egg that are useful, that are important or that are needed for reproduction to take place, okay, are actually secreted by the ovary, okay? So, but if you look at what we have here at the neck region, we have the thyroid gland. The thyroid gland is found at that point, okay, at the neck region. Directly underneath it, we have the parathyroid gland. The parathyroid gland is what helps to regulate, the level of the calcium that we have in the blood. What the thyroid gland does is to affect the metabolism among other things, okay, that we could have there. That's why we have it directly. But the parathyroid gland that is placed directly underneath the thyroid gland is to help regulate the level of calcium, the calcium level that is needed in the blood. Okay, we have it in the male, we have it also in the female. So directly under that, we have the next one that is called the adrenal gland. Okay, adrenal gland is small, is triangular in shape, and it is positioned on the kidney. Okay, the two kidneys, we have them located there. So the adrenal glands, we can have it in the male, you see it also in the female. What it does is to help trigger the fight to flight response. We call it fight plan. Now, the adrenal gland, okay, usually secretes hormone that we call the adrenaline hormone. Now, we call it the fight and flight response, okay? Because sometimes when you have somebody is in danger, like you have a thief, okay, that's being run after, okay, and then he's trying to escape for his life. He knows that once he gets caught, is going to be killed or is going to be punished. So the adrenaline, okay, the adrenal gland releases the adrenaline hormone into the bloodstreams and then makes it so fierce, and then you can see that kind of person, even though no matter how tall the fence is, he can still jump it. Ordinarily, he might not be able to, but because the hormones, okay, the adrenaline hormone has been released into the bloodstream, it gives it more energy and then to run away, to escape from danger at that particular point. And sometimes you see some people when they want to engage in physical fight, we call it fight to flight, okay, physical combat, you see them swelling up, and then you see the hormones are released and then the aggression is there. So it's because the adrenal gland, okay, has released the adrenaline hormone, okay. That's why we call it the fight to flight gland, okay, response that is present. So that is situated on top, directly on top of the of the kidney, and then we have the pancreas, okay, of course, pancreatic, to regulate the level of the sugar that is present in the blood. The pancreatic, okay, the pancreas, okay, is what the gland that regulates the sugar level that we have in the body. And then we talked about the testes before, and then the ovary that we have in this. So these are part of the endocrine system. We call them endocrine gland. We have exocrine gland too, from the mouth, from the saliva, we have the eyes, and so on. And those are exo, but the endocrine glands, we have them present now. So let's go back to the options so that we can select the correct answer. So from the diagram, you can discover that it says the organ directly on top of the kidney was the adrenal gland. The adrenal gland. So it's not the thyroid gland that is at the neck region. Adrenal gland, yes, pancreas gland is positioned, underneath the kidney, and then we have the prostate gland for the male, okay, in the sex organ. So the correct answer is option B, adrenal gland. Now on to question number 16. The photosynthetic pigments include what? Photosynthetic, of course, the pigments that help to carry out photosynthesis, okay, that are present in the plant, okay. Option A says chlorophyll and carotenoids, okay. Yeah, chlorophyll, we know the chlorophyll, yes. We know the carotenoids. Carotenoids usually are what we call the accessory crucial, pigments, okay, that are present in the plant. What they do is that they will obtain, or they will get the light energy, or the energy from the sunlight, okay. They trap it and then they transfer it to the chlorophyll. So if the chlorophyll does not get this thing, get the energy from the sunlight directly without the carotenoids. So the carotenoids is what does, like the messenger, okay, that goes to the sun and says, sun, we need energy to produce our food. So it gets the food there. That's why we call it an accessory, a crucial accessory, pigment. And then once it gets it, it transfers it from the energy to the chlorophyll. So the chlorophyll now is where the site where they use it. And don't forget that chloroplast is the part of the organelle, okay, where the chlorophyll is found, okay. Yes, chlorophyll and carotenoids are pigments usually that help plants to carry out their photosynthetic activities. Option B says chloroplast and cytochromes. Yes, chloroplast we know because chlorophyll is present in the chloroplast, okay, is an organelle that is present in the plant cell. Then we have the cytochromes. Cytochromes are just proteins, okay. Usually they are proteins that help in transporting electrons, okay. So directly they are not involved in photosynthetic pigment, okay. They are not photosynthetic, even though they are pigment, but they are not photosynthetic enough, because what they do is, as proteins, they help in transferring the electrons. They transport the electron that we have in there. So cytochromes make this not to be correct. Then we have the melanin and the hemoglobin. What we talk about the melanin is the black pigment that we, the blacks, have, okay. We have it present in our skin. The whites don't have this, because that's why you have this melanin present in us as blacks, okay. We have the blacks having the melanin present in their skin, so not in the plants, okay. We are talking about photosynthetic pigment. Then we talk about hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is the pigment that is responsible for the redness of the red blood cell. We have it in the red blood cell that combines with oxygen to carry oxygen from the lungs to the part of the body, That's hemoglobin, so not in photosynthesis. Then we have the carotenoids and hemoglobin. So carotenoids is correct. Hemoglobin makes this not to be correct. So the correct answer here is option A, chlorophyll and carotenoids. Question 17. Monocot stem differ from dicot stems in that monocots have what? No cambium, of course. Monocots don't have cambium. We call them vascular. Though monocot stems do not have vascular cambium. Yes, even though we have some of them, like the palm tree. Yes, the palm tree, like the Joshua tree. Okay, some of them, they undergo a secondary kind of growth. Okay, but instead what they have is they have a thickening meristem. They could have that in their stem. Okay, but they don't have vascular cambium. So monocots do not have that. So that's what makes them differ from what? The dicot stem. We have option B, no pit. They have pits, fewer vascular bundles, and then we have the phloems with parenchyma. Of course, they do have that because that is the transporting tissues that are present in plants for transporting water and nutrients in the body and minerals that are needed by the plants from the roots to the tree and then to the part of the plants, okay, that we have there. So monocot stem differ from dicot stems in that monocots do not have vascular cambium. So the correct answer is option A. Question number 18. The opening and closing of the stoma are regulated by what? Well, we know that transpiration takes place. Option A, transpiration takes place usually in plants. Okay, we have in the leaves, where there is loss of water vapor, okay, in the plant, water that is transported from the roots to the plants, especially in the leaf part of the leaf, that's where transpiration takes place. So the excess of it is released, okay, is removed, okay, it's transported and it is removed from the what? From the leaf by the what? That's the water vapor that is in excess is removed in form of water vapor, and that's what happens in the transpiration. Okay, we are talking about the opening and closing of the stoma. Now the stoma usually is found, the opening and closing of the stoma usually are regulated by no other option, not respiration, not diffusion, but by osmosis. Now we explain what happens. Now the stoma, actually in the leaf we have what we call the gut cells. Okay, so the gut cells are surrounded by the stoma. They surround the stoma. So whenever there is excess of water, okay, coming in, what happens? The gut cells will swell up. Once it swells up, it will now pass the water, through the what? To the stoma, and then the stoma will what? Will also become bigger. Okay, we will open up. Okay, once the gut cell, the water passes through the gut cell as so much, then what happens? The gut cell swells up. Once it swells up, what happens? We have the water eventually now coming out. Then we have the stoma will open up. But when they are also what? There's water retention. When we have less amount of water that is right, what happens? You will see the stoma will close back, and then the gut cell will relapse. So that is how the opening and closing of the stoma actually is regulated. So it's regulated by the process of osmosis. Don't forget, osmosis has to do with what? Movement of water molecules or particles from region of lower concentration to region of what? Higher concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. There has to be a membrane through which that process is taking place. So the correct answer here is option D, osmosis. Question number 19. Stunted growth and poor root development are a result of a deficiency in what? Usually when we talk about the development of the roots, okay, there are two elements that are usually associated with it. We have the calcium and then we have the phosphorus. Those are the two elements that are associated with the growth, okay, of the roots, the growth of the roots, okay, in the plants. And then we have it also as a result of what? The growth. When you see the growth and we talk about the development of the roots of the plant, they are being owed to what? The calcium and the what? And the phosphorus. But in more cases, because we have, if you look at the option we have sulfur, we have phosphorus, we have calcium, we have iron. We can see the two options here, okay? Of course, it is intentional. Among these two, or between these two options now, phosphorus is considered to be responsible more for the growth and the development of the roots of that particular plant. Calcium has other functions, okay, that are more pertinent to it. That is the primary, not the development of of roots. So if we have a plant that is showing stunted growth, the growth is just stunted, and then you have that the root is poorly developed, it's not well developed. When you talk about the strength, okay, of the root, we'll be talking about the calcium, okay, but when we are talking about, you know, the poor development of the development of the roots, okay, so to say, the phosphorus is considered more as an element that is needed for the well development of the roots of the plant, and then the growth to be what of the plant to also be at its peak. But once you discover that there is stunted growth in that plant, and then you discover that also that the roots are not well developed, you discover that what is responsible for that is to go for what? Phosphorus. But if you have an option, we have the options where phosphorus is not present there, then you can go for what? Calcium. In other words, between these two now, phosphorus is a better option compared to what? Calcium. Okay, please don't mistake it for that. If you have options and then you don't have phosphorus there, then you can go for calcium when it comes to stunted growth and poor root development. But whenever you have phosphorus here, phosphorus is considered a more nutrient or element that is needed by the plant for them to grow well, okay, and then to also develop their roots very well. So the correct answer here is option B, phosphorus. If you have any question that is bothering you for all that we have done so far, please feel free to ask your question. All you need to do is to click on the link in the description below that takes you to the Myschool website. There you'll be able to ask your questions and solutions will be provided within the shortest period of time. Now let's move on to question number 20 now. Question 20 says, the pancreas secretes enzymes for the digestion of, don't forget we talked about pancreas being formed, responsible, being found directly what? Underneath what? Immediately after the kidney, we have them in the stomach region. That's where we have the pancreas, okay? And then we talk about what it does. It regulates, one of the functions is to regulate the sugar level, okay, that we have in the blood or the body of the organism. So the pancreas secretes enzymes for the digestion of what? It's responsible, the pancreas is responsible for the digestion. Okay, when we talk about digestion, we are talking about how food particles, large molecules, okay, of food that are what? That are broken down into what? Smaller and soluble form, where it is what? It is ingested, it is absorbed into the body of the organism. The food that you eat, the solids you eat, will not just, if it gets into the mouth and then get to the stomach and then it is not digested, you just pass it out like that. But it must be broken down first into smaller particles, smaller units. That's why we talk about digestion, where to be able to be absorbed, okay, into the body. Of course, we talk about the alimentary canal. Now, the three types of classes of food usually that this pancreas secretes the enzymes for to digest them are usually, we talk about carbohydrates, okay, of course, that gives us energy. Now, carbohydrates is being broken down usually, of course, into glucose, okay, into glucose. Glucose is the form that is needed by organism. We need glucose to get our energy to carry out our metabolic activities, but that glucose will not just come directly as we get the carbohydrate food, okay. What we do is energy giving food. What we're taking the food will be split and will be broken down by an enzyme. Of course, amylase is a kind of enzyme. When you have names of those substances ending with ASE, okay, amylase, lipase, okay, those are examples of what? Enzymes usually that are secreted. So the enzyme that is secreted for digestion of carbohydrates, we have the amylase. Amylase also helps, amylase, trypsin, okay, pepsin also helps in regulating or digesting of proteinous food. Proteinous food, of course, are macromolecules that are broken down into amino acids, okay? And then we have the fats and oil, okay? Fats usually are broken down into what? Fatty acids and glycerol. When we talk about fats, we are talking about the lipids, okay? We have fats, we have food that contains fats. The digestion, the enzyme that does that, also we have it to have, which is what? Lipase, Lipase. So lipase is the enzyme that is actually secreted, okay? The pancreas secretes enzyme for the digestion of food that are what? From fat. So we mentioned fat, we mentioned carbohydrate, we mentioned protein, okay? Those are the two. So let's look at the options we have. Option A says fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. Yes, fat, protein. Yes, fat. Okay, the fat is broken down into fatty acids and glycerol. Protein is broken down into amino acids, and carbohydrates are broken down into glucose. Okay, and then we have option B. Of course, option A is correct. Most likely option B says fats, we have vitamins and cellulose. No, fats, yes, correct. Cellulose is a macromolecule too that is carbohydrate in nature, okay, but it is not broken. That will require what? Cellulase, okay, to break up that. So fats correct, vitamins is not. Option B is not correct. We have fats, we have carbohydrates, we have vitamins. Fat correct, carbohydrates correct, but vitamins is not secreted. The enzyme is not secreted by the pancreas, okay, so that is why it is not considered. Vitamins, and then we have protein, cellulose, and then minerals. Minerals, the pancreas does not secrete an enzyme, okay, that digests minerals, okay. So the correct answer is we have fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. Option A is the correct answer. Do you have better explanations or steps on what we have done so far? Please feel free to share with us. All you need to do is to go to the comment section, indicate the question number and the solution you wish to share with us. Now let's move on to question number 21. Pineapple is an example of, okay, if you see the way the pineapple looks like, you have several flowers, okay, so many of the flowers, coming out like that on top of the of the fruit itself, okay, the one that is edible that we eat, okay. So when we talk about pineapple now, you see that we have many flowers, okay, that are fused together. So when we say many flowers, we talk about multiple. So we can say that pineapple is a multiple fruit, okay, multiple fruits, in that we have several, it is formed for what? Many flowers, okay, multiple flowers, fused together to produce that particular fruit. Don't forget that the flower is the reproductive part of the of the plant. So we have the flower plant. So we have the fruit itself down, then for many flowers. So many flowers actually fuse together to form that particular pineapple. It is that, so that's why we call it a multiple fruit, or we call it a composite fruit. So what the examiner wants to know is if you know the other name in which the multiple fruit is also called. We have dehiscent fruit, we have aggregate fruit, we have a composite fruit, we have a simple fruit. Of course, a composite fruit is the other name. A multiple fruit is called which pineapple is. So the correct answer is option C, a composite fruit. Now let's move on to question number 22. The correct sequence of the movement of urea during urine formation is what? Usually, before we look at the options, let's analyze what happens in the movement of urea first, during the formation of urine. Now, once the blood gets into the kidney first, okay, now the essence of the blood passing to the kidney is to filter. Yes, we have osmoregulation, functions of the kidney, osmoregulation, hormone secretion, and the likes. We talk about the nitrogenous waste that is present here, which the urine is part of, will need to be excreted out. Water balance level in the disease. Now, first, once the blood gets into the kidney, it moves straight first to tiny, tubes that are present in the kidney. Those tubes are called the glomerulus. That is where the journey of the urea movement actually starts, because we are going to formation. Now, once the blood gets in there first, it goes to the glomerulus inside of the kidney, okay, in the nephron, where the blood begins to get filtered off first. That is what happens first. We have the clusters of, those tiny, that are together. And then directly underneath the glomerulus, we have the Bowman's capsule. Now, the blood moves, of course, straight to that place that has been filtered, where we have the waste portion. We have the waste that are present there, that are excreted, that needs to be excreted. And don't forget, we are talking about the urea movement in the formation of urine, okay, that will be passed out eventually. So once it moves first, the filtered blood moves straight to the Bowman capsule. The Bowman capsule, you can know that by having a cup-like shape. It has a cup-like shape where the glomerulus is situated on it. So we have it getting. So now the waste together with the urea now moves through the Bowman's capsule, where the filtration also continues. Now the filtrate that we have to move to what we call the convoluted tubules. Now the convoluted tubules is a place where the urea now gets concentrated. At that point, it is concentrated. We're talking about the convoluted tubules. Once it's concentrated, the urea becomes concentrated there. We have the water, present, and the blood, everything, balanced up in that place. Once it becomes concentrated, it becomes reabsorbed. Now it has to be absorbed now, and then once it is absorbed, and then it is secreted in that particular point where we have the endless loop. The endless loop is the U shape. Okay, it has a U shape kind of. It has a U-shaped tubes like that are connected together. So it moves on to the endless loop. In the endless loop, or what we call the loop of Henle. So it is from the endless loop now that we have the reabsorption again that takes place in that part. Don't forget, in the convoluted tubules, we have the absorption and the secretion of the urea taking place there. And then once that takes place, it becomes concentrated. Once it gets concentrated, we now pass it on again. It becomes reabsorbed again in the collecting tubules. Don't forget, the collecting tubules is where it will be passed through the ureter, okay, and then eventually the urea or the urine now passes through, and the filtrate passes through the ureter to the bladder. Okay, bladder is the place where it is stored. Once the urine is stored there, and then it's eventually passed out through the urethra into and excreted out of the body. So the starting point where the journey actually begins is from the glomerulus. Glomerulus is where the first part where it gets to. So we are looking at the sequence now, how it moves on. Option A, we have glomerulus starting from there. Let's do elimination method first. Glomerulus starting from here. So option A, we can consider that. Glomerulus, option B, yes. Convoluted tubules and convoluted tubules. So which means it cannot start with convoluted tubules. So option C and option D are eliminated. So we have option A and option B left. Now we have the glomerulus. From the glomerulus, we have the blood moving to the filtrate, okay, moving to to the Bowman's capsule. I explained that before. That's the one that has the cup-like shape, okay, that has the filtrate moving there into it, and then we have the glomerulus to the Bowman's capsule, yes, and from the Bowman's capsule we have it to the convoluted tubules, yes. Of course, we have the two types of the tubules. We have the prismal, okay, the dismal, and then we have the convoluted tubules also. They are also in two types here. So both of them here, we have them present, and then we have straight to the endless loop, and then to directly to the collecting to the collecting tubules. This is the last part of the distance. So option B says glomerulus, Bowman's capsule, yes, just like this. We have the convoluted tubules, we have the endless loop, then we have another convoluted tubule again, and then to the collecting tubule. Of course, this and this, they look alike. So the best option is option A, because we have the journey starting in the urea, starting from the glomerulus, then to the Bowman's capsule, and then to the convoluted tubules. Don't forget, the convoluted tubules is the part, okay, is the place where the reabsorption and the secretion of the moon takes place, and then it is passed to the endless loop. Endless loop is the point where we have the urea being concentrated again, and then finally to the collecting tube where we have the urine eventually formed and passed out with the waste through the urethra, stored in the bladder, and then through the urethra outside and excreted out. So the correct answer is option A. Question 23. The waste product of plants used in the conversion of hide to leather is what? The waste product of plants used in the conversion of hide to leather. When you talk about hide, we are talking about the skin, okay, of animals. But we are talking about for plants now. We have hides present in what? We have, that's why we refer to it as hide and skin, okay? So the hide usually are gotten from plants, okay? Option A says gum. Of course, gum is a waste product. Alkaloid is a waste product. Tannin is a waste product. Resin is a waste product, okay? But we are talking about the waste product of plants that is used in conversion of hide to what? To leather. It is no other than tannin. Now, there's a process we call tanning process. Tanning, okay? That tanning process involves the conversion of the waste. Of course, as the name implies, tannin. So, which means that tannin itself, tannin, Tannin, which is option C, is converted, is a waste that is got, is a chemical that is gotten from the bark of the tree, okay? the tree bark. When we talk about bark, B-A-R-K, okay, the bark of the tree, you can see it there. So that is where we get the tannin from. So it's a chemical that is used. So that chemical is a waste product of the plant. So it is converted, it is used now to convert the hides, okay, that we have. It is converting the hide in what? In what? To leather. Hide and skin are gotten from what? From animals. So the animal skin that we have, like the cattle, those ones that are used in making of bags, making of shoes, making of hide and skin, usually are gotten from what? From animals. But there's a chemical that is required to change it, okay, to convert the hides into what? The leather that we, because you cannot just pick up the skin of the animal and then you begin to use it as leather. It has to be converted. It needs something to strengthen it, to make it stronger so that it can withstand, the pressure. So the waste product of plant is what is, all of these ones are waste product of plant, but the one that is useful in converting that hide and skin, okay, hides of this animal, the skin of the animal into leather, is what we refer to as tannin, through the process of tanning, T-A-N-N-I-N-G. So option C, tannin, is the correct answer. Now let's move on to question number 24. Which of the following uses diffusion as the principal method of gaseous exchange? Which of them? We have the lizard, we have grasshopper, we have rat, we have earthworm. Among all of these ones, now the organism usually that uses gaseous exchange, diffusion for their gaseous exchange, they are principal. That means they can also have other means of respiration, of excretion. When we talk about gaseous exchange, we are talking about what? How respiration, okay, gaseous, how respiration takes place, okay. So they have other, but the major one, the principal method of gaseous exchange, okay, are for organisms that do not have lungs, okay. Like we have the lizard. The lizard are able to what? Carry out, gaseous exchange respiration. Of course, you have them, they have lungs present in them. We have the rats, okay. Those are, of course, the rats are mammals, okay. So they have lungs also to have. They have a specific, part of their respiratory system, okay, where they can be able to what? To respire, to breathe in and breathe out. So rat does that. This grasshopper is also an insect. It has is also, this thing, part that is used in what? In respiring, just like the lizard also have. So these three, apart from what? The earthworm. So because the earthworm, they have a skin, moist skin usually, okay, or the cell is what they actually use in what? In respiring. Their skin is moist. You see it moist that way. The earthworm, that is what they use. And the process in which they can do that is by what? Diffusion. And don't forget, diffusion has to do with what? Movement of water molecule of gases, okay, from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. So the correct answer among these options is option D, earthworm. Now let's move on to question number 25. Which of the following has the most primitive respiratory system? That means the least, okay, among all the respiratory systems that we have. We have the snail, we have fish, we have insect, and we have the mouse, okay. When we talk about primitive, that means the least among them, because we have those ones that are advanced. In terms of advancement, the most advanced are usually those ones that have the lungs, like humans, the mammals, okay. They have lungs to carry out their respiration or respiratory processes. Let's move on to the board so that we can see the evolutionary trend of the respiratory system. We have place diffusion that takes place through what? The skin and then the cell of some organisms. So we said some organisms actually, because they do not have the kind of cells they have in them, because of the kind of organs they have in them, they have a primitive, cells that help them carry out their respiration or gaseous exchange. One of those examples is what? The snails, okay. The snails usually, they fall in this category, but we have, even though we have some snails that live in the fresh water, okay, they can respire in the water, but most of them usually will come out of the water, of the snails, come out of the water, and then they will carry out their gaseous exchange. How do they do that? They have the mantle, okay, the mantle that helps them to retain little amount of water inside of the mantle, okay. That helps for carrying out gaseous exchange, okay. They will also have the kind of body they have to, the kind of skin they have, the kind of body they have to also help to allow gaseous exchange, okay, oxygen to come in into their body. They can take in oxygen through that because of their type of body structure. Okay, and then we also talk about their the mantle that they have. Those they don't have lungs. Okay, they don't have trachea, so they will not be able to carry out. So, but they can use through the process of diffusion carry out their respiration or respiratory process. So the snail has the least primitive respiratory system. Then that moves on to to the gills. The gills where we have the fishes. We have the toad can have that, okay? They can respire through that. Then we have that straight up to the trachea tubes, like we have them maybe in the insect, in some organisms that have the trachea. Okay, then we have the book lungs, and then eventually to the book lungs is the lower, advanced way of the lungs. Okay, so the most advanced here is the lungs, like we have in the mammals. Okay, we have the most advanced. Okay, the most advanced in the trend of the respiratory system is we have the one in the lungs. Lungs can help to respire, organisms or mammals too. So it moves from diffusion in the skin to the gills to the trachea to the book lungs and then to the lungs. So the snails, like I said, is an example of organisms that fall in diffusion. Let's move on to the squid. So option A says snail. We have fish. Of course, the fish uses the gills. Okay, we have the insect, like I have the tracheal system, and then we have the mouse also, like mammals. They can have the mouses have the book lungs. Okay, that we have present there. So the snail uses diffusion as the most primitive respiratory system is in the snail that uses diffusion. So the correct answer is option A. I believe you enjoyed this content. If yes, please don't forget to click on the like button, hit the subscribe button, and finally tap on the notification bell to keep you informed once we upload our next video.